Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children 18 plus, you are tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast with me, Dustin Owen, and my main man,
JC.
John Coleman.
Dio, what's popping?
Yeah. Thursday night football.
Okay.
So today's Thursday.
It is.
Yep. You'll probably get this released tomorrow. Yep.
Yep.
So it'll be released on a Friday. So by the time people are listening, we are going to know the winner of the Oviedo Haggerty football game.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, it's a whole.
I thought you meant like NFL Thursday Night Football.
NFL Thursday Night Football are typically garbage games.
Typically, but the NFL's been
It's
doing a better
like
job.
Jags versus Titans. Who wants to watch that game? I'm a Jags fan, and I still don't want to watch Jags versus Titans unless it's like that once a decade opportunity where both teams are good and both teams are vying for the AFC South title. Yeah,
I went to the Oviedo High School football game last Friday.
Oh, you did make it.
Legit.
Okay, they won.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were missing 5 starters.
I walked in and it was like the third quarter and like, the meter made that the ticket. Hey, do you have tickets? And I was like, come on. I was looking, I was like, you really going to charge me? There's like 2 minutes left in the third. But we paid, whatever.
You paid your $7? Yes.
$16, and it took me right back. I felt like I was on a CW vampire show with, it's a Friday night football game, Friday Night Lights. It was great.
Yeah, so Brantley Gilbert, who's a country radio music artist, he's also a singer-songwriter, but he has a song called, it's a Small Town Showdown. I believe that's what it is. Anyhow, that's what it is. Yeah, it's Haggerty and Oviedo are the two major high schools in Oviedo, Florida. Oviedo is a suburb of Orlando, right? It is northeast of downtown Orlando, close to the University of Central Florida.
Shout out UCF.
Yeah, it's suburban America is what it is, right? But that's where I live. That's where my kids go to that school system. So it's a big deal. So I'm excited.
Yeah, all right.
I'm excited.
So,
I'm actually going to leave a little bit early so I can go to the gym first, get home, change my clothes, and then I need to get to the game a little bit earlier than you did in order to make sure I get a decent seat.
Where's the game at?
It's at, well, I'm going to say it's at home because I'm an Oviedo guy.
It's in Oviedo?
Both schools are in Oviedo, right? But it's at Oviedo High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back-to-back home games under the lights?
Yeah. Well, it's always under the lights in Central Florida.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, very few schools don't have lights in Central Florida.
Oh, because they can't play during the sun. They can't play during Saturday during the day because it's so hot.
Because it's so hot, and also that's when the Pop Warner teams play.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and we do have Thursday night football. But the reason why they're playing Thursday night and Friday night, do you know why? Tomorrow's a teacher work day.
A what?
Teacher work day. I know it's a day that teachers have to work and students don't have to come
like
in.
A snow day for Floridians.
I guess so. Yes. Yep.
Better catch up on them grades, teachers. Start grading them papers.
I honestly, I do believe that's what it is. It's the end of the first 9 weeks.
Just make it easy and hand out B's and C's. That's where everybody, doesn't matter.
John, you would have so appreciated it. They just handed you a B or a C to show up.
I had to earn that.
Imagine all the stress your parents wouldn't have had to gone through. Imagine all the lectures you could have prevented.
Listen,
You'd have never had to go into prep school.
I was smart with when those progress reports came home. I just said, "Hey, Ma, just sign this paper. What is it? Don't look. Just sign it."
Yeah, nowadays kids do not get off that easy.
Yo, it's digital. They send it right to the
every day. Can you imagine your mom and dad every day? John, you got a 52 on that physics exam. What happened?
That's exactly why kids are the way they are now, is because they're constantly under a microscope. Got big brother, mom and dad looking after them.
Yeah, many kids, like my oldest, many kids have this thing called Life 360 on their phone.
Jesus Christ.
So it's great that you had this phone, right?
Yeah.
But then you leave, and mom and dad know exactly where you went, how fast you drove.
That's scary.
Yes. I mean, it's scary, but it's also good.
Nope. I wouldn't have made it this far. Had my parents had that, it's an ankle monitor. That's called.
It's actually better than an ankle monitor because I don't think an ankle monitor actually tells the police how fast I was driving when I was going somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. So like as a kid, your parents are jumping into the grade book every single day. Some days, true story, because I live with 2 teenagers and my wife is a phenomenal mom and very involved in our kids' lives. And if you ask our kids, they'll probably say too involved because my son will get home occasionally and get berated for all the wrong reasons. Basically, his teacher put in the wrong grade. This has happened. The wrong grade, or just didn't put in the grade. So it shows as a 0. And he is getting a tongue lashing.
Like, Mom, I was in class.
So teachers out there, anyone who's like, dating a teacher, married to a teacher, you have a family member who's a teacher, you hang out with teachers on the side, share this clip with them.
Yeah, make sure.
Because they very well are leading to kids getting punished, beaten, grounded all because they fat fingered something into the grade
Put
book.
it in
They typed a 7 instead of a 9.
Put in the wrong Excel grade.
Yeah, they put in a 5 instead of an 8.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Oh, my bad. They forgot to put in a grade. So now my wife watched my son's chemistry grade go from like an 88.9 all the way down to a 72. And she's like, you were this close to an A. Now you're almost getting a D. And
Give
she's
me that
freaking
computer.
out.
Give me the keys. You're grounded. And he's
Give
like,
me your,
"What?"
for him, it's give me your headset. Give me your keyboard.
Technology.
Yes. There goes Call of Duty.
You know what? Back in my day when I didn't have all these games of technology, we would go fishing.
Would you fish?
We would
I
fish.
fished a lot as a kid.
Did you?
Like that was like a fun thing to do. We'd go to the local golf
Yeah.
course. We'd go and that's how I learned how to throw a cast net.
Mm-hmm.
Was I threw a cast net to get some shiners. We'd go buy shiners. And golf courses always had the biggest and the best bass.
Yeah.
Because when the golf course was built, they would stockpile the ponds with bass to keep the ponds clean. And then because it was a golf course, usually a private golf course, they weren't fished on the regular.
Yeah.
So we would always find that one or two holes on, usually attached to a home that one of our buddies either lived close to or they lived there. And we'd set up and we would just fish for hours on end. I have one of the best like memories with guys like Jason Ware and Danny Bogiages and Kevin Noss. Like we would do that to pass time. But we always fished for bass.
Okay.
We never fished for catfish.
Really?
No. Look, catfish to me, I've been to a couple really good catfish fish fries. And it's a great time. You have the catfish, you have some cornbread, you have some mac and cheese, some sweet tea. And it's a very southern thing to do, and it could be a very good time.
Okay.
I've also gone to all you can eat catfish,
Yeah.
and then I hugged a toilet bowl for 2 straight days. Yeah, and catfish are an ugly fish, right? They are.
They're bottom feeders.
They are bottom feeders. Catfish eat soap. They eat hot dogs. They eat raw bacon.
They eat shit.
Yes. Well, tilapia eat shit too, and people, give their left arm to eat tilapia.
Right.
Oysters are the sea's filter, and I love me some oysters. But we're talking about catfish right now. Catfish are ugly, and you know what they do? They have these really thorny parts of their fins that can stab you, make you bleed, force you to have to get stitches
Mess you up.
if you don't know how to properly take a hook out of a catfish's mouth.
Right.
And by the way, it's not the whiskers, ladies and gentlemen. The whiskers do not bite. It's the pins within the fins that are full of poison and are needle-like. Okay. So catfish in general, it's a garbage fish to fish for.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fish. It's edible. Saltwater catfish tastes like garbage, and freshwater catfish tastes a little bit better. And catfish is also, by the way, people like in Mississippi, do you know what noodling is?
Yeah, of course. When they stick their hand down to the parts unknown and come back up. Yes.
Yes, catfish is something that you can fish for with just your arm.
Yeah.
You use your arm as the rod, the reel, and the bait.
Yep.
Okay. We never fish for catfish.
Right.
But in business,
Nice parlay.
and this is what we're going to talk about today, John.
Yep.
In business, I find too many times people who are not achieving the sales success that they want, it's because they're stuck fishing in the catfish pond. Do you know what I mean by that?
I do, but what for our listeners and viewers out there who might not understand, why don't you expound upon that?
All right, I'm going to use examples of what that looks like.
Okay.
And because this is not just hey, loan officer podcast talking about loan officers again.
Right.
No, this is loan officer podcast. We're talking to business professionals and entrepreneurs and salespeople alike. This is everything you should have learned in high school but didn't because it wasn't taught, right? So we're going to try to educate and motivate and entertain, maybe inspire if we can.
Just a few.
Look, if we can do 2 out of the 4, I think we're winning. We hit 3 out of the 4, we're crushing it. 4 out of 4 is a freaking grand slam.
Dominating.
Yes. All right. So, but I'm going to use some LO analogies. I'm going to use some other entrepreneurial analogies.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the loan officer one because the one that's the most recent and the most current.
Let's go.
I was on the phone with 2 potential loan officer recruits. So in my position at Waterstone Mortgage, one of my roles is actually to interview and encourage people that I think are like-minded, that fit what we do well, to come work for us because I think we can support them better in their careers.
Correct.
So I'll hop on phone calls throughout the weeks and the months and the days where I'm talking to mortgage professionals, some in my local market here in Orlando, some down in Boca, some up in Jacksonville, but then others in North Carolina or Indiana or Ohio or Texas. So I was talking to these two ladies who've been in the mortgage industry for 20 plus years, and they are in North Carolina. And I'm going through their frustrations, right? And their frustrations they're trying to tell me are due to their current employer.
Okay.
And I wasn't really discounting that their employer could not have been supporting them better, because I think there's always room for improvement.
Right.
But I felt like a lot of their issues, and I said this to them, I'm like, I think you ladies are just fishing in the wrong pond. And they're like, huh? I'm like, well, again, if you constantly are going to the same pond with the same bait and the same tackle, and you're catching the same type of client, you're fishing in the wrong pond. Right? You guys are using a small little Zebco that you picked up from Walmart and a piece of soap, and you're catching catfish. But you're complaining to me that all you're catching is catfish. Well, let's try changing your bait. Let's get away from the hot dogs, the soap, and the raw bacon. Let's get rid of the Zebco. And before we do that, let's go change the pond. Because maybe your bait is working, maybe it's just the pond. That's where I would start with them. Right? And then we'll work through that. You're like, wait a minute, you're back on talking about fishing? I don't fish. Let me explain.
Okay.
These ladies were having an issue. They didn't like their loan size. They didn't like the type of properties that they were consistently financing. And they felt like the clientele were very difficult. And then because of that, the referral sources, the realtors and builders who were referring them the business, were a little bit abusive or not appreciative to the hard work that they were putting in. Now, what were they doing? Well, they were working with realtors that were situated in a geographic location that served more of the low to moderate income households. Now, I'm a huge proponent that we as an industry, I'm a mortgage nerd at the end of the day, we as an industry need to be serving the underserved. We do not need to be turning our backs on it. But it doesn't mean it needs to be 100% of what we do, or even 50% of what we do. It could very well be 20 to 25% of what we do. For these ladies, it was 90% of what they did.
Damn.
Okay, so it was low to moderate income and the type of properties. Well, there's certain property types that are easier to finance than others. A single family home is by far the easiest type to finance. Then you start talking about, well, what if it's a townhome? What if it's a condo? Okay, well, townhomes are easier to finance than a condo, but maybe not as easy to finance as a single family home. And condos are going to be more difficult, and then manufactured homes even more difficult than that. 90% of their business were manufactured homes. So it's a lower sales price. It's typically a harder borrower to qualify because for whatever reason, usually it's just lack of education. They haven't been financially educated throughout their lives. Or maybe how they're paid, they're hourly versus salary. Like, look, someone who is hourly is harder to qualify than someone who is salary. Right? If you're making $16 an hour or $20 an hour, but your hours are fluctuating and there's overtime, you're going to be a little bit more difficult to qualify than, let's say, the teacher who is guaranteed their $48,000 a year. So their clients were more difficult, their loan sizes were more difficult, their properties were more difficult. My solution to them was you need to start fishing in other ponds. I needed them to get out of the particular zip code or neighborhoods where they were marketing their services, and they're going to need to go and find other areas, and usually they're only 1 or 2 towns over, right? I was thinking about, we talk about Travis, right? Travis works with us here at Waterstone Mortgage, and he's a younger loan originator. He just started his 2nd year in the business. We picked him up after he had like 3 or 4 months experience elsewhere.
Right.
And we've been doing our best to kind of guide him, shape him, train him, support him as he survives the first 2 years. Because one thing I've learned, the first 2 years for any business, it's not just the loan officer business. It's not just, the realtor business. It's all businesses. Go start a French cafe, right? Or a Colombian coffee cafe. Guarantee it's going to take you about 2 years before you're getting any good and making any money. So I was talking to Travis just like 3 or 4 days ago.
Right. And Travis came to you and said,
well, it was just like, hey, man, he was having the same issues as my new friends up in North Carolina were having.
Okay.
He's like, I'm getting all these leads, but they're just kind of going nowhere. I said, what do you mean going nowhere? He's like, well, I'm getting a lot of people who don't qualify, or if they do qualify, it's a price point that really isn't available in the market. And, the realtors that I'm working with just don't seem to be as professional as I think they should. We're not necessarily like-minded. And I'm like, all right, well, talk about where are you marketing your services? Where are you doing your sales calls? And at the end of the day, the solution was Travis lives and works in an area that he needs to be marketing to. We call it the 3Ds. If you're in Central Florida, you are familiar with Deltona, DeLand, and DeBerry. All three cities are in the same county. They're in the same geographic location. I think all three of them touch each other. So I said, Travis, continue marketing your services in the 3Ds.
Yeah, don't give up.
That's a great area to be in. I said, but just 8 miles or 8 minutes away are areas like Heathrow, areas like Alaqua, areas like the 32771, which is the higher end, newer part of Sanford, Florida. I go, you have to drive past all three of those areas, neighborhoods, to get to the office every single day. And those areas have average sales prices of $600,000 or $800,000. Those areas tend to have realtors who work with builders who build $1 million homes. That's a little bit of a more affluent area, a little bit more professional area. The 3Ds is a great market for first-time home buyers. It's a great market for Don and Cindy Owen, those blue-collar families that are looking to raise their kids in a good area. I said, continue marketing to the 3Ds, but you can't just make the 3Ds your end-all be-all. Because if you do, then what you're going to get is what you're going to get, right? So like the catfish pond for him may be the 3Ds. I'm not saying catfish are bad. I'm not saying we shouldn't fish for catfish. But if all you're getting is catfish and you're tired of eating catfish, that's when you have to get out of the catfish pond, right? So for Travis, the answer was really easy. It was that. Now, along with my recommendation to Travis to not just solely focus on the 3Ds, but to start looking at Alaqua and Heathrow and the 32771 aspect of Sanford, I was like, hey, how do you dress? How do you sound? What do you talk about? Right? Because what he can talk about in certain markets is going to be different in other markets. You know, if he's going around wearing his Wolf of Wall Street t-shirt or Wolf of Mortgage t-shirt, that works in the 3Ds.
Yeah, it does.
Right? Like I had one of my favorite professors at UCF, Dr. Morgan, taught me by example. You dress for the occasion. You dress for your client. Right? If Dr. Morgan was going out to speak to a bunch of farmers, he was in jeans, boots, and a polo. If Dr. Morgan was going to an event with a bunch of politicians, he was in a 3-piece suit with his presidential cufflinks on. You know, like, so for Travis, it's like, let's mold or be chameleon-like, and let's start fishing in different ponds and bringing the proper tackle. Right? Like, I don't need a 48-foot boat to go fish for bass. I would prefer a 48-foot boat when I'm going out for tuna. I'm gonna run 40, 60, 80 miles out into the Atlantic Ocean. I'm not gonna take my little 18-foot John boat out there. Right? So like those analogies have to correlate to the business world. They have to correlate to Travis. Hey, Travis, by the way, if you're going to go into those Heathrow and Alaqua type neighborhoods and markets, then you may want to dress shirt and tie. You may want to come equipped talking about the latest and greatest financial strategies for wealth accumulation. You may want to know something about golf. You may even want to pick up the sport. Right? Maybe the people in the 3Ds, that's where you lean into jujitsu and you lean into Electric Daisy Carnival and EDM music. Right? Like, and that was the advice that I had to give. So many times, and like you can sit back and think about your business, right? If I'm a dentist and I make my money, like my good money, doing cosmetic, doing veneers, doing implants, I have to ask myself, well, what am I doing to market to those clients?
Maybe my shop shouldn't be in the food court of the mall. Maybe,
Correct. Or maybe the way that my signage is outside. My signage needs to talk to the clientele that I'm trying to bring in. The places I'm spending my money need to maybe be different, right? Because that's like the definition of insanity. Do you know what it is?
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Correct. So like if I'm a dentist and I'm running my own dental practice and I'm looking at my annual P&L every single year and I'm watching my peers out earn me by 20, 30, 40%, and I'm going to the dental conferences and they're telling me what they're doing, right? Whether they're doing teeth whitening, whether they're doing veneers, whether they're doing implants, and I'm not doing that, or I'm not gearing my image to that. I'm not talking to the right insurance providers that maybe provide coverage for that. Okay, then I'm fishing a catfish pond.
Right.
And it's fine fishing a catfish pond if I'm not expecting different results.
Yeah.
But if I'm raising my hand saying, hey, I don't like these results, then I'm going to have to change ponds and possibly even change tackle. I even have to change the gear that I wear. Flip-flops and board shorts and a tank top may be perfect for fishing for catfish or even bass. But again, if I'm going to go offshore, I may have to put on slickers.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
I may get a little bit wet. Right? I may need to prepare for motion sickness. Right? These are all things that I'm trying to correlate a simple task of fishing to the business world. I may have to learn to golf. Right? I may have to go spend new money on signage.
Yeah.
I may need to go take a course on basic financial principles. Right? There's certain things that I may have to do. But John, you know this and I know this. Nothing changes
if nothing changes.
If nothing changes.
Yep.
Right? So the definition of insanity goes hand in hand with the nothing changes if nothing changes. I'm going to need to change. Not just necessarily the pond. Start with the pond, but then work towards the tackle, the gear, the setup, and possibly even what you're wearing and what you're saying along the way.
Do you ever any examples of someone who was able to kind of course correct? Like anybody you can think of that was like, hey, they were only fishing for catfish, were able to kind of pull themselves out, and now they like kind of reinvented themselves. And
there's a local realtor.
Okay.
Check this out. Like I like this question. I wasn't even prepared for it. There's a local realtor that I don't know well. A good friend of mine who's been on the show, like they're besties. And I've been following this realtor for the past probably 10 or 12 years. I'm sure as a younger loan originator, I tried to market to her, and it's a numbers game, and I was never able to get my foot in the door. And I've been able to witness her going from dominating a market that was, I would call it, their sales prices were always about 20% lower than the average median sales price in our local market. But she was the queen of that, right? She was the queen of that. She was willing to list mobile homes and homes that were in areas that, were going to be below the median income and below the median sales price. And I ran into her at an event. In fact, you were with me at the event.
Okay.
And I noticed the crowd she was running in. Okay. I noticed the clothes she was wearing. I noticed that she had gotten her teeth fixed. Okay. Yeah. And then it just got me curious. I went and pulled some of her data.
Oh, okay. Pulled the numbers.
I pulled the numbers, and I noticed that her average sales price is $600,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I witnessed it. And I can tell you, because I followed this. I mean, I used to market to this particular realtor, trying to get her to meet with me, trying to get her to refer me business. Because as a lender, like I literally have been coach and teach. I want to be that lender that does the $60,000 USDA condo. And I want to do the lender that is helping the new head coach for Orlando Magic solidify financing for his or her home in Orlando, right? Like, I want to be all things to all people. I don't want to be just the person who does the $60,000 USDA condos. But yeah, so I was able to just watch her. And if I put two and two together, and I know who she hangs out with now, I believe what she did is she started getting coaching. I believe her coach started, coaching her, hey, look, you birds of a feather flock together. You are the company you keep, right? You're going to attract the people who look like you and sound like you. So if you look and sound a different way, and that certain way is bringing in a certain clientele, and you're tired of only serving that clientele. Again, please hear me out. I'm not saying don't serve that clientele, but that's all. Then maybe you need to step up your game. As you step up your game, birds of a feather flock together, you'll start dragging new people in, right? If you're constantly going to the bar that's filled with smoke that only sells beer, barely sells food, and to play darts and pool.
Yeah. It's a good time, but
it's a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're going to pull clients that like that too.
Right.
If you want to pull clients that like to put their pinky in the air and drink champagne, you should go to those bars as well.
Yeah.
But you should also be able to speak their language. You should also be able to emulate or mirror how they're dressed, the things that they're into, right?
Yeah.
So Like when I say quickly to somebody, hey, get out of the catfish pond. What I'm trying to say is make a change. Make a change. Good buddy of mine. Buddy of mine reached out to me, totally different industry. And I'll hop on a call with him probably 4 times a year.
Okay.
4 times a year, and I'll have to ask him. I'm like, hey, is this like just me and you catching up, or are you calling? He's like, nah, man, I need a kick in the ass. Like, okay. I'm like, cool. Right. I love giving them. Yeah. Like, in fact, my wife and some of my best friends have told me I give them unprovoked, and people don't like that.
I didn't ask for it, man. You're kicking me.
Yeah, or I don't want unsolicited advice, Dio. Like, turn it off.
Right.
Turn it off. Just be my friend. Just be my husband. I'm like, all right, cool. I need that sometimes. And but he'll call me, and now that I'm more cognizant of giving unsolicited advice, I now ask, hey, look, what do you? He's like, no, I need it.
Okay.
And he's like, man, keep on reaching out to so and so. It's another friend of ours, and like, I've always relied on her to do X, Y, and Z for me, and she's just not coming through anymore. I'm like, well, then call someone else. I don't have anyone else.
What do you mean? I don't.
He's like, I just keep calling her. And I'm like, look, man, you got to get out of the catfish pond. Like at some point, and I asked him, I said, when was the last time you actually got a deal, a transaction, a job from her? It's been like 2 years.
Bro.
I'm like, this is all you're doing?
Yeah, bro.
Like, I'm like, yeah. He's like, I said, you are literally the definition of insanity who is fishing in the catfish pond, and your catfish pond dried up.
And you're still there casting it.
It dried up. You ate them all. You ate all the catfish. Like, not only does this person only bring you catfish, but then you ate them all, and you never learned to become a better fisherman.
Right.
You never went and tested out, well, should I use fly? Should I be in a river? Right? Should I get a different, should I get off the Zepco and do this? I mean, bait caster, who knows what? Yeah. Yes. And it applies to just about everything. Like,
is it ever too late for a loan officer or someone in sales to like kind of pivot? Let's say someone's been doing this for like 50 years. This is all I know, Dio. How am I going to change?
It's never too late. I mean, you just have to understand that. I keep on using like these trite phrases. The same Dr. Morgan that I always like look up to because of how he dressed. Homeboy used to write all over. I took his writing for public relations course. Okay, it's probably my senior year in college, and trite. I speak in trite. I write in trite, and he wasn't a fan of trite. Like, trite's basically like, hey, it's unoriginal, right? But I'm going to use it right now as a whole like birds of a feather fly together. But the nothing changes, nothing changes. No pain, no gain, right? No pain, no gain. Change is painful. Change is awkward. Change is confusing. Change brings anxiety. Like, you have to be able to embrace that, but I don't think it's ever too late to change. Now, I will say, as people get older, do you have the energy to change? Change takes a certain amount of gusto, right? Like we said earlier on the show, and I preach it incessantly, it takes 2 years. I don't care what it is. It takes 2 years. You want to go run and compete in an Ironman?
2 years.
It's going to take you 2 years. Like, think about what it takes to lead up to that. Well, I first probably need to learn to run, swim, and bike well. Then I probably should do some sprints. Then I should do some Olympics. I should probably go run a marathon at some point, because the end of an Ironman is running a marathon.
Shit.
Okay? Yeah. I probably should do a 150-mile bike ride so I understand what that feels like. And I should probably compete in at least one, if not 2, half Ironmans, where at least I do half the distance. That's typically a 2-year process if you're raising your hand saying, I'm going to do this today. So it takes 2 years. Whatever change someone's getting ready to make. Let's say you're a loan officer and you've never really worked with home builders. And you decided, you know what? I'm going to work with home builders. I'm going to make this a part of my business. I'm going to tell you, John, it's going to take you
2 years.
2 years. Can you be persistently consistent for the next 24 months with your sales activity? Can you consistently pick 6 subdivisions where you stop by at least once every other week to say hi and ask those sales representatives what you can do to help them sell more homes? Look, the first time you go in there, they may shoo you away. The second time, they may shoo you away. The third time, they may drop an F-bomb until you get out.
Yep.
By the 4th time,
they're like, all right, what do
you need to figure out a way to make nice, whether it's bringing coffee and donuts, whether it's calling ahead, whether it's asking them, hey, is there a better day? I keep coming on Thursday, and you guys keep, like shooing me away. And you may find out, Thursday's the day they have their sales meeting, and their sales manager's a prick, and they get chewed out every Thursday morning.
And I just so happen to come ready. Hey, you want some sales? Get out.
Yes. Yeah. But you have to be persistently consistent with those activities. So your question, I think, was, if I get back to it, is you're ever too old? No, you're never too old. if you truly want it. But you got to truly want it. No one else can want it for you. But, staying in the catfish pond doing nothing is never a good answer.
Right.
Or a good solution. Very rarely in life. Like I always like to say, if someone's angry, look, doing nothing may be the best decision.
Put down the phone.
If you've been drinking,
don't send that text.
Doing nothing is probably
yes.
the best thing that you can do.
Right.
But in life, if you don't like where you are, doing nothing's not a good solution.
Correct.
Like, hey, I have this growth on my nose. It's kind of gross.
Just keep it moving. Don't worry about it.
I'm going to do nothing. And then guess what? 2 years later, a dermatologist is cutting into your nose, and now you have a big chunk of your nose taken out because you did nothing.
I probably should have done something.
Probably, yeah. Hey, I'm kind of unhappy in my life and my marriage. Oh, I know. Let's do nothing.
Keep coasting.
Yeah. I'm kind of afraid I'm drinking too much.
Pound another beer.
Yeah, do nothing. No, that's never a good answer. It's never a good solution. At least I haven't found it to be.
All right.
Hey, no, you know what? If you think you're drinking too much, go talk to somebody. Right? Go talk to somebody about it. Right? If you don't like where you are in your life, go find a life coach. Right? Or talk to a confidant. Right? You don't like where your marriage? Sit down with your spouse. Maybe look into marriage counseling or doing some kind of a weekend retreat or go read a book together that could help coach you through maybe understanding where your difficulty lies. Business operates the same exact way. Like doing nothing, it'll continue giving you the same result that you're unhappy with.
Yep.
Yeah, get out of that catfish pond. Go fish for something else, but understand change doesn't necessarily come without a little bit of pain and a whole lot of effort, and you're going to have to make up your mind that it's going to take 2 years. I was talking to a younger professional a couple days ago, and I was using running a marathon because so much of this industry, the mortgage industry, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if I made my mind up that I was going to complete a marathon, that's my goal, is completing it.
I don't need to come in first.
I don't need to come in first. Right. If I complete a marathon, I'm already so far ahead of so many other people who never have.
Right.
Right now, compared to marathon runners, I may be the worst.
Yeah.
But compared to my peers or the American populace, I've still done something that so few have ever accomplished.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning of my business, I just want to complete it. Now, I may get to it to where like, hey, I want to do another one so I can do it better. I want to do a third one so I can actually compete. But the first step is just to finish one. So that means if I get to mile 19, by the way, a marathon's 26.2 miles. If I get to mile 19 and I'm absolutely done, mentally done, I'm not going to give up. I may have to sit down, stretch out. I may have to do about 5 minutes of meditation. I may have to do some deep breathing. And I may need to walk for a mile. But I'm going to get there because I set my mind to it. I'm going to have setbacks. I may trip. I may fall. I may skin up my elbow. I may need to go get medical attention for that elbow. As long as my elbow is not broken, I'm going to finish. Even if my elbow was broken, depending on the amount of pain I'm in, I'm still going to finish. Like, that's life. That's business. That's sports. That is sports. Not every practice is going to be a great practice, right? Not every practice are you going to enjoy. Not every game is going to go your way. But if you've set a goal and you've set your mind to it, you should stick with it. Now, if you don't like the results that you're getting and all those varies, you may have to consider changing up your training methods. You may have to go find a new coach, right? There's certain things where it's like, hey, you need to make a change. Most times that change is internal. It's The Man in the Mirror. Shout out to Michael Jackson.
Word.
One of my favorite songs ever, by the way, is The Man in the Mirror.
That is.
Like 9 times out of 10, I find it is the man or the woman in the mirror.
Yep.
Like that too can make a change, right? It's not about your employer. It's not about your coach. It's not about your spouse. It's usually about you, but the hardest person to blame, the hardest person to have a heart-to-heart with is yourself, right? Because it's uncomfortable, right? Because we have pride. Pride's baloney.
That's profound.
Pride's baloney.
That's profound. I feel like you should be. That's all I have for today. DL signing off.
You know what? I'll do that, John.
That was good.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Like, this was an episode on Catfish. Sure. This was an episode geared towards all of my friends who are entrepreneurs, who are in sales, who are in business. Like, when you're looking at your lead generating activities, your marketing activities, when you are assessing your results, you're coming to year end, right? We're in fourth quarter 2021. We're getting ready to enter 2022. And you're setting your goals and you're looking back on the year that was, and you're determining how successful you were or were not, as you look forward, which is the only way we should be looking, as we look forward, you have to ask yourself, do you need to be fishing in new ponds? Are you happy with the results that you are receiving? Or do you need to make a couple changes to your approach in order to elicit a different result?
Well said.
He's John Coleman. I'm Dustin Owen. You have tuned in to the Loan Officer Podcast. We look forward to catching you on the next episode. In the meantime, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher,
Google Play, or
anywhere where you can find a podcast. Hey, we're also on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. He's John Coleman. Google him. I'm Dustin Owen. Hook up with me on LinkedIn if you have not done so already. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Deuces.